All right, analyst Rotimi Michael Kade joins me now from New York to discuss the top stories so far. Rotimi, thank you for joining us on Rise America.
You're welcome, Tolu.
Very quickly, it's beginning to look like President Trump is more serious now than ever to end the war, Russia's war on Ukraine. However, the latest strikes are looking like an attempt to frustrate his resolve. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think you put it so succinctly that President Trump is trying to continue on the trajectory of his peace marathon. Don't forget, he brokered the peace between Israel and Palestinians, and we saw that they exchanged hostages, and some people touted that, hey, maybe he should be given a Nobel Peace Prize. However, the President Trump want to continue on that trail with Russia and Ukraine. So when Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky came over to him asking for a tomahawk, he feels that that will further escalate the already fragile situation between Ukraine and Russia. But on the other hand, Ukraine is now left despondent because Russia is now seasoned in bombing Ukraine. And they're looking for help right now. As I speak to you, Zelensky is all over the world, especially in Europe, to ask for help in order to stave off, the undeterred, bombings of his own country by Russia. Russia seems not to respect, the deal that Trump is putting forward. But Trump is trying to buy time and say, you know what, I'm not going to support you or supply you with tomahawk because that is a more dangerous weapon than whatever the U.S. has supplied in the past. And that could reach even as far as the half of Russia. So that would further give or consolidate Ukraine in a position to, stave up whatever terror that Russia is bringing to the table. So the situation right now is very dire, and President Trump is trying to manage it the best way he can.
Rotimi, Russia is already controlling more than 25% of Ukraine as we speak. What else does Putin want, and why is he bent on disrespecting the deal that U.S. President Donald Trump is pushing so hard to sustain?
Well, you're right. It's, the region, the Donetsk and the Luhansk region, are completely, I would say, maybe 90% under the control of Russia. And Russia's main goal from time immemorial, ab initio, is the fact that, hey, majority of that region used to be Russian territory. And majority of the people that live within that region are the one asking for Russia for help to be liberated, from Ukraine. That is the narratives of Putin is putting forward. But again, when I look at the Donetsk and Luhansk region, these are industrial areas. I would say perhaps maybe the most progressive, most productive areas of Ukraine. And who doesn't want to have control over that? If we can take over like 25%, plus Crimea, which was taken over in sometimes around 2008, by Russia, annex it, it means that it's just a matter of time. Russia will continue to push inwards to take a total control of Ukraine. And I think that's the fear of so many people around the world. You're giving Russia, an inch, they're going to take a mile. So let's just say that Ukraine actually cave in to the pressure and say, leave that 25%, to Russia. Russia is not satisfied. Russia is not going to go on any deal. Russia will not put pen to paper. Russia will continue to progress because that's the mission, because Russia feels that Ukraine, is a threat. As long as Ukraine intends to join NATO and also align with their enemies.
Rotimi, in other words, Russia has been very strategic in taking spoil of Ukraine. Now, do you suspect war fatigue, looking at the waning strength of other countries in supporting Ukraine in this war? Do you suspect war fatigue?
Well, I don't suspect that, especially in Europe. Ukraine is closer to Europe than the United States. So Europeans are already afraid that if Russia is making such incursions into Ukraine, most likely Europe is at stake. And they have to do everything to make sure that they support Ukraine so that Russia do not have that advantage. Already Russia had the advantage because they supply Europe with gas and fuel, and at any point in time they can cut it off. And sometimes they use that as a bargaining chip. So even if United States seems to be regressing in terms of support and being very lukewarm about supporting Ukraine because they want peace, Europe is not in that position. Europe is intensifying efforts to see how they support Ukraine.
I'm glad you alluded to the waning strength of support from the U.S. But yet again, if Russia continues to disregard the peace deal being pushed by President Trump, or what other options do you see President Trump taking in this regard?
Well, I think at this point, President Trump will get that fatigue from Russia and may decide to, speak with his counterparts in Europe and say, you know what, at this point, we're going to form a kind of a guard around Ukraine against any external aggression from Russia. And that will be harder for Russia. Now, this demand from Zelensky, the Tomahawk weapon, that they demand for, Trump can decide to say, you know what, we're going to supply Ukraine with that, or we're going to supply Ukraine with even more dangerous weapons. So that may put Russia in check than, just trying to have a roundtable discussions with Russia, because Russia under Vladimir Putin doesn't look like it's ready to back down right now.
Thank you very much indeed, Rotimi, for joining us on Rise America.